Hey guys, how's it going? This is Breaking Boundary Podcast. My name is Raphael. Over here we have...
What's up, guys? I'm Matt. This is the second episode of the podcast, and we're pretty excited to announce our first guest on the podcast. We have Jonah Kaplan here, and he is a cinematographer, DP. He's a student right now, and we'll just have him introduce himself.
Sweet, thanks, guys. My name's Jonah. I'm a sophomore at Emerson College studying film production, and I do a lot of random little video work too. And so I'm happy to come here and talk to you about what I do, what I'm trying to do, how I got to what I'm doing, and breaking all those boundaries.
Hey. Definitely like that little drop right there.
Hey.
We basically, I bumped into Jonah at a meetup, and I think you were at the meetup too, right? And
I hosted it.
Yeah, hosted
It was his meetup. You were actually.
I was actually at your meetup. So
I was like co-hosting it. So yeah.
Yeah.
But,
And I think what got me like thinking, because you were just like, oh yeah, like you just mentioned like I have studio space possibly, and I was like, oh fuck, because that's really hard to find, like, you know, Boston to like have like free access to that.
Yeah. For sure.
But and then I found out you were 19, and I found out you were a student, and big people doing shit that like you're not even doing, like myself as like a photographer, and then they're like much younger than you, and like obviously I've carved out a different path for myself and focused on different things over the years, but it's definitely like you sense something special about someone. I think we all bump into people where you're like, what are you, you're 17, you're on tour with like fucking Diplo or something.
Dude, it's
filming.
impressive. It's impressive. Yeah. Just like we talked about with the person who co-hosted that meetup that we just mentioned.
Yeah.
Mark.
Yeah.
He just turned 20, so he's similar age to Jonah here.
Right.
And
just doing big things.
Kicking ass, man.
Big things.
And it's impressive. And I mean, it can be hard because you're like, oh, I'm 25. And you'd be like, oh, I want to be where or why am I not like where I should be at? But it's like, once you start getting into that territory, then you're already just like digging a hole for yourself. So you just gotta...
Right, you can sit around just kind of, I don't know why, or you can do it.
Wasting your time.
But then you meet people where you're like, you're doing big things. Damn, they must be like 21, and they're like, I'm 36. And you're like...
Age has nothing to do with it.
Yeah,
it's
I
really...
truly believe.
Yeah.
It's true.
It's all drive.
It's definitely all drive. I think being young helps because you're able to, I need to pull an all-nighter. Like, I need to, I need to do this, I need to do that. You have the energy that comes from being young to put more energy towards something mentally and physically.
And maybe the blissful ignorance of not realizing how tough life is.
Yeah.
I think, I'm very aware of that. I talked about that a lot. I'm like, I am 19 and the world is my oyster still, and I know things get tough, and I'm just trying as hard as I can now. It's like, they say college is like the glory years, and so I'm trying to use this positive energy and blissful ignorance right now so that I can really like commit to something and use that the young energy, like you're saying, to just like do as much as I can.
What do you think for yourself, or like at what time and what do you think it was that made you possibly like kind of grow up fast mentally, maybe, or helped you to kind of like realize like, okay, this is what I want and this is what I'm going to go after and whatever?
Well, so I was born in New Hampshire, up very far, past Franconia Notch.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
okay.
This is it's Bethlehem, New Hampshire.
No idea.
Near Littleton. Shout out to anyone. No one.
So it's in northern New Hampshire. Is that northern?
So north.
Damn.
So up north.
Is that where up north?
Up north.
Is that where in Breaking Bad? Is that where Walter was hanging out, like northern New Hampshire?
I don't know. I don't know if that was exactly.
I know he was up there, rural New Hampshire.
He was up there. No, it's real up there. But so I grew up there, and we have about 3,000 people. It's a farm town, wow. And like people just grow up fast there. You have a lot of responsibilities, and there's really no messing around. Everyone there has a job and is driving by the time they're 16. It's just accepted. You just have to do that because what else are you going to do?
Right.
You know what I mean? Not many people leave the town. And I grew up with that mentality. Interestingly enough, and this is something we talked about, is I moved when I was 12, and I moved to India. I had this crazy opportunity where my dad's a teacher, and he was like, it was in a matter of like 3 months. He went to this conference. He wasn't looking for a job.
High school teacher,
and he sat next to this academic dean, and they started talking. She's like, "Yeah, I work in India," and then boom, 3 months later, we're across the entire globe.
Has he always been like that adventurous, that spontaneous?
Oh yeah, no, my parents are weird as hell. I should clarify, weird in the best kind of way.
Yeah, it sounds like I was gonna say, it sounds like weird in a good way.
Oh, they're trekkers, mountaineers, adventurous people from the get-go. That's why they're together. My dad proposed to my mom on a glacier. Like that's how they live. So it was out of the blue, but it wasn't completely out of the blue. It was like, oh, we're doing this crazy thing now. Okay, cool. Here we go. And so, but to answer your question more specifically, growing up like that and then having a huge significant move, and that perspective that was gained, and I could talk for hours about what I learned in India, and I made a lot of mistakes, and I learned a lot of things, but moreover, coming from that base of real worker, like you work because you work, and that's what people do, and there's no real time to mess around, and then going and seeing just how much privilege we have in this country, and the opportunities that we are given, and what we can do for other people. It was the only thing I could do, and I joke around a lot with people. I say, this is the only thing I can do, because it's the perfect thing. It's elevation of story, and it's collaboration, and it's creativity. I did theater all through high school. I did, I think, 8 or 10 shows through high school, and people thought I went to Emerson for acting, and I caught this bug with this freelance videographer guy my senior year, and I was like, this is it.
That's dope.
And then I committed, because I was like, I have such privilege to be able to do these things anyway. And when I came back to the States, hit the ground running, and I've been working since. And I did a bunch of projects. I shot a documentary in Kaza, a bike trekking documentary, and I traveled around with that filmmaker Alex, and I've just kind of been doing my thing.
Yeah, no, I mean, wow, it's pretty amazing, and I think you were obviously had that travel, that whole like cultural shift experience when you were 12, and then from there. But it's crazy to me because we talked about in the first episode where I was talking about how I lived in Korea for a year, and I didn't even do that until I was 22. But still, at the same time, I had a very similar kind of experience. Maybe not in the same context as India, being like a Korea's now, it's not a third world country anymore. It was actually not that long ago. But anyway, I did experience some of that as well throughout my travels, and like it's interesting to see like that kind of experience really shapes you and shows you what's possible. And that's kind of what I see in Jonah too. And then, like he said, he hit the ground running when he came back to the U.S. And that's kind of how I felt. Just maybe a few years later, then he's doing it. He's going to school anyway, but still, like it's something that changes the way that you think about things and how you approach your whole life. So, and I know that you have had the travel experiences as well. So
yeah, I was gonna say that like a year, 4 years, high school, like what's really important to me when I travel is that I spend a few months in a place. I still can't if someone like was like, here's 6, I mean, I guess I would, but it's just so tough to me to imagine like Euro trip, we were in Spain yesterday, now we're in Italy today, and I'm just like, what is the fucking point?
It's too quick.
Too quick. You really don't like, I think like working as like a busboy or like a disher in like a restaurant, like in like a place that you really are interested in, like Portugal or something, like is a way to really like, and you're kind of making your money that you spent to go there, and then you're making your money to pay for rent, and then after 3 or 4 months you're like, all right, cool, I'm like out of here. But you learn so much about the place. You
actually immersed into the place, and you didn't just pass through like a tourist.
It's a practical adventure,
right? And I think you had a practical adventure for 4 years of just really like getting into that culture. I was fortunate enough to go with a friend on a trip to Africa after I graduated high school, and it was kind of like we paid for some of it, but it was like our graduation present. And I was just really fortunate to hop on along with his father, and his brother was studying abroad in South Africa, and a lot of people in South Africa just told him, you need to climb Kilimanjaro before you leave Africa. Like, you can't leave Africa without, it's just like something people do. So he told them, and I was hanging out with this kid so much that they considered me like another son of the family, and they just invited me along. So that was great. And summiting that and being in Tanzania and going all around Tanzania for about a month was just like, I mean, I'd traveled before. I'd been to Turkey, I think, was like the only place I'd went to outside of the country. But I'd gone to like Puerto Rico every year, and then a bunch of places within the U.S.
Yep.
But just going to Africa and then summiting that mountain made me just like, I think just really like, was a really good start for me for going into my freshman year of college. I was like, yeah, like life is fucking cool. You know, like,
yo,
there's just really cool shit out there.
Yeah,
you know,
dude.
Well, I wasn't like confused or like, oh, I'm sure the rest of the world's boring or anything like that. Yeah. It just made me feel like I don't know what I'm gonna do really, but I know that whatever I want to do, I want to be doing it while I like see other things and travel around the world.
Yeah.
Somehow, some way, which was like, I'm gonna be a really great mountain climber for like a year.
Yeah.
But whatever. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah.
Go on. What were you gonna say?
Well, no, I was gonna say that I talked to a friend of mine, Dustin, about this, and he says this is one of the reasons that I'm doing the thing I'm doing, and it sounds very similar to what you're saying. Is like you had this experience before you kind of started your passion in your career.
Yep.
And I really think that is important. I think, and he said this to me. He was like, I think the reason you're doing this now is because you had that. Like, so many kids have wanderlust. So many college students. Oh, it's the time to go on exchange, and I don't particularly want to right now. I went to India, but I've gone to almost every continent because of that. It's like Thailand, Germany, like just like we just go because it opens up the world like that.
Truly does, man.
And so now I'm back, and I'm back in my home country that I don't know very well at this point, because I was a kid when I left, and I came back as an adult, and all I want to do now is work and build my own career in it. And if that means traveling, it means traveling. But there's this, I feel like if you don't have that one experience, you have this thing in your gut that's like, I need to get out. I need to, before I start my career or do something, I need to travel.
Before I settle down.
Oh, that's the best. Well, you're young.
Yeah.
You're doing what you want. Well, you're young.
And this comes, I guess this comes back to the I'm young thing. It's like, I think the reason I'm doing this now is because, dude, I'm over it. Like I had that thing, and I obviously want to travel. I want to do stuff, but it's like that kind of, I've done that part, and I want to do something more.
Yeah, no,
than just
and
travel.
for sure, it doesn't really matter that you're like what your age actually is. It's about the experience that you had. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And same thing that you guys said, how like the world just kind of opened up for you.
Yeah.
That's what happened to me when I studied abroad in Australia when I was 20,
Yeah.
and that set me on the path to then do a bunch of other crazy things that I would have never done if I hadn't had that first experience. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't think I would have came back to the Boston area where I'm from and be like, yo, I'm going to freelance and just go at it.
Yeah.
And I'm not getting this like stable kind of job or whatever, because this is what I truly want to do. And I don't think I would have had the kind of ability to like bypass like the fears that I had about it to then just fucking do it.
Yeah.
If I hadn't had those previous experiences. So yeah, like what Jonah's saying is true.
You would say like, I mean, I myself would like put it like this, that like accomplishing things, whether it be like large things, like even just like getting your high school diploma or something like that, which a lot of kids don't get. But just like conquering something, like going abroad or like stepping out of your boundary. I don't want to like drop it, but you know, it's,
keep fucking dropping it, dude.
It's basically, helps you go like, oh, I can do this, then I can do that. I can do this, then I can definitely do that. You know,
Exactly.
The hesitation is the main thing. Well, they say, and this is like a thing that comes up a lot, it's like the best, and I think it can be said for a lot of things, but they say like the best DPs are people, the best storytellers are people who have lived alternative or strange lives.
Yeah.
Because no one wants to see something they've seen before themselves.
Like, they want to see a new angle, a new perspective.
And like those who have lived, and what I'm saying is it's not just DPs, it's photographers, and it's any media creator.
Yeah.
If you are copying someone else and what they do, no one's gonna care. Peter McKinnon is not great because he does what is popular. He made what was popular.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like he created a style that did not exist before, all these guys, and then everyone copies that style. And like, I'm not saying everyone, but I'm saying people copy that style and then get frustrated. It's because you weren't coming at it at a new angle. You weren't being original.
Right.
And so like the fact that you see these goals and these experiences and they're genuinely unique to you, like working as a busboy and a thing, that makes you a better artist. I truly believe it makes you a better artist.
100%.
Because you're attacking things
100%.
with your own.
There's so much that's happening with that stuff, with like people mimicking people, and there's not anything necessarily wrong with that.
Yeah,
not inherently wrong with it, because you gotta mimic people to then create your own style.
Yeah,
I
or
feel
you
like
can just kind
it's
of like
forwarding.
Do it.
That's what it should be. It should not be mimicry. It's forwarding.
Right,
Yeah,
it's forwarding
something and kind of making it.
That's a good way to look at it. Forwarding, yeah, and it's true. But then you have to have that awareness to be like, okay, now it's time for me to do my own thing and really
put my spin
have
on
that originality and not be be confident about it. You
but
know what I mean?
it can even be like attributed to like, I think it's funny when like, I mean, the whole craze of like the past few years of like everyone like bleaching their hair blonde.
Yeah.
And then people not even realizing that like Justin Bieber did that. Like he dyed his hair, like bleached his hair blonde like a couple years ago and had this like kind of shave around, the sides, but leave the top and whatever. And then people don't even fucking listen to Justin Bieber, but they're all dyeing their, and it's just like, and then like Sia did it or something, and then people do that. But it's also like, it's like when a rapper nowadays like comes out with something and like, or like, I don't really listen to that much like Drake.
Yeah.
But like, he started like a flow of rapping that caught on to everybody's flow of rapping, and he was the first one to like do that flow, and
kind of
then
like
everyone
pioneered it.
Yeah, and then everyone did it in their own ways, and Kendrick and J. Cole and Eminem and whatever all decided, okay, I'm gonna come out with something, and Joey Badass, and like in their own ways. But like, I can't say now, fuck Drake, he sucks, dude. He started something that everyone's doing. That's fucking talent right there.
So that other super talented people are trying to copy it. It's what it's
a compliment.
It's like frustrating because it is super popular.
Yeah.
So you want to say like whatever, but no, you're right.
Yeah.
It is really it breaks all of the rules and then becomes the rule.
It's
right.
True.
Right.
Things are almost like, and there was someone else that said this. I think it was a photographer that said this in like this one documentary I was watching on YouTube, but. It's like things are completely 100% out of fashion, ugly, considered like not the way you should do things, so close to that thread, and then it's like, boom, now it's amazing.
Back in style.
Yeah, it's like you should not dress like, you should not fold your this, you should not dye your or have a neck tattoo until like it's like, it's in style. And then it's like, it's so close to out there and like barbaric and like whatever that it just becomes like, oh my God, that is so the fucking way. I mean, even mirrorless cameras were said to be like not okay to do. I mean, that was like, you're having a worse quality of image when you have a mirrorless camera before, and then someone like redesigned it and decided to like bring it in.
Yeah.
But before it was like, before you could get the optics where you could have that looking through. Yeah. It was just like, why would we ever have that?
Yeah.
DSLR like just makes like, and then it just became the thing that everyone wants. And I think that's how ideas are forwarded, by being like, I know this isn't like really realistic, which is why I love when people are like, just hear me out. I love that start of that sentence. It's just like, just hear me out. We can hang this dolly like this, and then we can make this like that, and that's how we'll film it or whatever. It's
the same reason that we talked about, like the thing that people are afraid to do, which is like do something different, or go somewhere different or whatever. Like traveling could be an example, like we talked about earlier. But it's like the people that are not too afraid, or at least they conquer that fear to go do that new thing or try that new thing. Those are the people that end up pioneering what then ends up becoming popular, but it only became popular because those people were bold enough to be like, yo, I'm going to do it this way. Fuck that other way. I'm going to do it this way.
Right.
And then that's where a lot of things like pick up. That's where trends kind of start.
Yeah.
Not to say that you have to be a trendsetter or anything like that, but there's a reason why those things become popular, because the people that do those things get to a certain level of skill or, you know, comfortability with that uncomfortability of doing something different and like kind of stepping out of the norm and being on the fringe of it. So like, I don't know. I think Jonah is definitely right about like the storytelling aspect. The people that are good at telling stories are someone that lived like maybe differently than a lot of people.
Uncomfortable, some could say. Like,
Yeah.
and I wanted to ask, like, what's, like you said, you could talk about, like what you learned and like the things that you gained from like India, but like, if you had to like narrow a couple situations down or a couple moments down where you're like, dude, this is fucking uncomfortable and I don't like this, or even like
I'm
when you're
sure, yeah,
or
so-
even like when your parents first told you, maybe you were like, oh yeah, I mean that just seems like your parents to do, so you were like, oh, they're out there, so cool, but maybe you had this kind of feeling in the back of your head like, and I know you're 12, but
Yeah.
if you could think,
Let me think back. My 12-year-old self. Dude, my 12-year-old self was not a good kid, truthfully. And
Yeah.
I'll say that on the record. You know, New Hampshire, I love New Hampshire. And it's a beautiful state. Though some feel otherwise. But it's a beautiful state, but truthfully it's a small town, and there are a lot of traps, and I was very much set for those traps. Lots of substance abuse, and like at a very young age, and so truthfully, the biggest lesson I learned from India was self-control and like self-reliance and judgment. But basically, when about the actual journey was, I was psyched to go to India, but for the wrong reason. So, and this actually links in perfectly with kind of what we were saying before, was I went because I thought it was something that would be cool.
Yeah.
Genuinely, and that sounds kind of bad. I came at it at the wrong angle. So
I mean,
my parents were like, we're going, and I was telling everyone, I was like, listen guys, I'm going to India. You know, like a jerk. Like, you know, I was a 12-year-old kid who was doing something different, so I was psyched. And I actually got there, and the first year was super hard, and I wanted to leave. I remember going on a walk with my mom being like, I can do this year, but I want to go back. Like, this isn't what I want to do. Like, it's cool to go for a year. Yeah. But like, I don't want to be here for 4 or 5 years. Like, what does that even mean? Like, I can't even conceptualize that. I've been alive for like barely 10. You know what I mean? Like, and so the biggest lesson was I came out of it. It wasn't a tour. It wasn't a tourist place for me. It was my home, and I learned humility in being part of someone else's culture, and not pretending like I'm in it, but that I have humility for it. And judgment. I would never, you know, I spent so much of my life, I know the language, I know the culture, but I would never say I'm a part of it. And this is a point of contention within my family. My family will dress up in Indian clothing, and I refuse. I don't think it's appropriate for me to do. Every Independence Day, I would wear a suit, and I celebrate Indian culture, but it's not my culture. Right? I'm not going to steal it. Yeah, right. And that comes back to copying and like, and forward, like, I love Indian culture. I think it's super rich, but I also want to stand for what I stand for and be able to bring. I was the only American kid in my class, and which is, I think, another lesson I learned was I was the only white kid in my class. Everyone else was Indian. I was every day reminded of my race, my culture, and made fun of for the way that I look and speak. Like, I'm not saying I understand how racism feels, but I have an inkling. And like, for sure. Everyone should feel that. Like, every privileged white kid in suburbia should be forced to do that. And that was like one of my biggest lessons. And so it's a mixture. It's a mixture of all those things that kind of brought me to this place where I came back feeling like I had a purpose and a discipline to execute that purpose, and judgment and humility. And I'm still trying to figure it out. I'm talking like I figured this thing out, but like, those are the lessons that I came away with it.
Good groundwork.
Don't you feel like, and it's obviously not the same, but I feel like people too much, and I've been fortunate enough to, you know, I grew up in Chicago, and then I lived in Michigan for 4.5-5 years, and then I moved out to California for a year, and then now I'm living in Boston. I lived in Alaska for like half a year, but I'm the same way. I'm not Alaskan. I didn't grow up in the bush, and I know we see like on Discovery Channel, but I'm saying like it's a completely different culture there. It's not, you know, like you would see on TV, but I didn't grow up like where I went to school with 12 students or anything like that, and like chopped firewood in the freezing cold and 50-degree below weather or whatever. But I'm also not a Michigander or a person that grew up in California. And I think a lot of people, they'll move to LA or New York and they'll be like, well, in New York, we do this. I'm like, you're from like Midland, Michigan, you know, but they love New York so much and they love this new place that they've discovered that they want to pretend because they've lived there and struggled for 2 years that they're a New Yorker. And it's like, it's fine. I mean, and I get it. But I think that I think that there's something, I mean, like, to me, unless... I mean, I guess if you want to forget like your childhood or your early years, it's fine. But like, to me, like if you're from, you know, Alabama, then, and you move to New York, like, you know, be proud, be like, I'm from fucking Alabama. Like, what's up, you know? Yeah. And I think that there's something to say for that. And what you said about like, this isn't my culture, you know, about being like, hey, but this is where I'm from and this is what we do there. And I'm going to pick up and learn from what they do here and how they talk over here. But also, at the end of the day, I am American, and this is what I do. I think there's like something to say, especially once you step out into a more international level. But I do find that people do that a lot, and I think it's just because it's like this is better. Being from Chicago is so much more fun than being from Indiana. So even though I grew up on the border, I'm going to say I'm Chicagoan or whatever. You know. I don't know. I have a very classic problem, and I'm categorized as what's called the third culture kid. This is probably something you've heard of. I don't know if you
third culture kid.
Third culture. Third culture is this phenomenon that happened with globalization, which basically means like I was born in one culture, raised in another culture. Like I have like a hodgepodge of like two,
and that's quite a like contrasting thing.
It's very difficult. All
right, guys, we're gonna hit pause on the podcast because we got to reset the cameras. There's a 30-minute limit. We're new to this podcasting thing. We're going to start it back up in like 2 minutes.
Cool.
But yeah, no, definitely let's continue on that. That is such a...
Let me take a piss.
Contrasting thing. Let's get back into it, guys. We're back from our little, camera glitch.
It's our commercial break, man.
It's a commercial break. Yeah, there we go.
That's where I dropped those sponsors.
We'll get the sponsors there. So Jonah was talking about... What did you say?
Third culture.
Third culture. So let's hear what he has to say about that.
I feel a certain responsibility to talk about third culture because there's a very large third culture community actually, and like there's not a whole lot of representation about it.
In India or just
just in the world, because third culture isn't Indian. It's a worldwide phenomenon, and like no one talks about it. And we have groups for, for all sorts of different communities, and then these third culture kids are kind of thrown into it. So third culture is being raised in one culture, or being born in one culture, raised in another,
like transplanted,
and then this kind of medley of both of them. So you don't really identify with either, and you have these different aspects, and but you look like I came back to America when I was 18, and everyone was like, yeah, you're American, and I was like, I don't know how to work in this culture. Like I was so flustered and so confused. You can ask my parents. My first 6 months in this country, I was stressed and confused.
It's culture shock.
And it was culture shock.
Reverse culture shock, really.
And I didn't know it was what I was doing, because where I was living in India was not a city. It wasn't even on the level of like Boston. I wasn't in the city part of India. I was up in what's called like the foothills in the Himalayas. So this is like what's called a hill station school. Yeah. And so it was mostly forest with like a small bazaar. You had monkeys and leopards and fucking dogs and
that's so
all
cool.
sorts of, so it was like I was living like in jungle is actually a Hindi word. Jungle means forest. I was living in the jungle.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's so
pajama cool. is an Indian word. Also, there's a couple that like we took a lot. Actually,
that makes sense. Pajama.
Yeah. Pajama just means pants.
Well,
for real?
Yeah.
Then that doesn't make sense. Now you're throwing me off.
It's like an Indian type of pant. But so coming to a city, I'd never lived in a city because I grew up in rural New Hampshire, and then I lived even more removed. And then I showed up in Boston, and there's like roads everywhere and houses right next to each other.
Yeah.
And it was a lot.
And how old were you when you came back?
I was 18 when I moved
So this was
back.
like last year?
This was last year, yeah.
Wow. Okay.
And since then, I've just been working and trying to make this a reality, because I was I had so many amazing experiences and including photo and video stuff. And photo's new to me. I really started in video.
Yep.
There, I was like, I need to come to the States, and it's, they call it the land of opportunity. In a lot of ways, they're right.
Yeah, no.
It still really is.
Oh, yeah.
I'm a firm believer in that, and so I've just been seeking out work, and I think I got my first freelance gig a month after I got back, and now I do part-time work for Vagrants, which works out of Red Sky in Alston.
Yep.
And I do freelance whenever I can, and I'm in school, and I'm just trying to kind of, something's gonna catch. Like I'm just trying to
100%.
do what I can.
And now you're podcasting.
Now I'm on a future award-winning podcast.
Dude, current award-winning.
Yeah. We give ourselves awards.
Dude, when this is released in like a week, we'll definitely be award-winning. That's crazy to me. I mean, I think that people even like, I felt the same way for like a week when I got back from Alaska, because I was living in the more rural part of Alaska in a very, very, very small town, and there's all dirt roads, and you know police station's like an hour away, closest hospital's 2 hours away, closest big city was 2.5 hours away, and that wasn't even a big city or anything like that. But like when I got back and I got off the plane in Chicago, I started coughing. I got a headache from all the traffic that was going on around. We were just sitting in traffic, and I was like, this is exhausting, and I haven't even gotten home from the airport yet. Yeah. I was like, this is exhausting. And I got back, and I was so trusting in everybody and just like leaving my shit around, because in Alaska you can like leave your laptop in like a coffee house for like 8 hours and then like come back and be like, oh yeah. And like no one will do anything, because everyone,
that's wild.
Like everyone knows,
nice.
Everyone knows everyone. So, and like you kind of like govern yourselves, and it was just very like, very bizarre to like come back to. I kind of felt, at first I was like really annoyed, because I was like drinking everybody out and smoking everybody out, because I was just like, what comes around goes around, because it really did like work like that, and like, oh, I'll pay for this, don't worry. But then I realized everyone was just taking advantage of me, and it just happened over like a 6-month span, and then I got right back to like, you got 5 on this, you got 5. it got like
Venmo,
I got really back. Like I didn't think I was gonna get back to that, and then I got back into that. I was like, oh yeah, well, that's might be the way it works over there. And I think that's another thing that you learn really well with like changing cultures, is that you learn how to be like adapt.
Yeah, no, that's before we talk about that, I want to touch upon what you're talking about with the payment stuff, because that was actually
talk about money.
That was actually a hilarious thing in Korea when I was living in Korea, where they'd kind of make fun of the foreigners. So like I'd go out with foreigners, because like there was a lot of other English teachers there. Yeah, they became some of my best friends. One of my best friends is actually from Woburn that I met in Korea. Didn't know him before, so that was kind of cool. But what I'm talking about, we eat at a restaurant, and then we'd want to pay like each chip in an amount, and they call it Dutch pay. Oh. And they're like, like they're just like making fun of, because it does complicate things. Yeah. When you're at a restaurant, you're like, oh, can you have like 5 separate checks? And people are like, what? Like, are these people serious? Yeah. And that's like in Korea, they don't do that at all. Like if you go out with your friends, like one person pays for it all, and then like the next place, because they like hit like a bunch of different places on one night if they go out or something, then the next place someone else pays, or they get you back like another time. And here it's like, it's way different, where it's like, like, all right, we each got to split this like exactly. And I get it.
It's a very American thing, and in some cases I do feel like maybe it's not an American thing, but it's like just like our wanting to like not like, I trust that if you pay for me when we go out to lunch, you pay for us when we go out to lunch or something like that, that I'll get you back in a few weeks or something like that. But like, I don't trust that everyone's going to do that. And there's some people that are like, thanks, appreciate it, sweet, awesome, always. And then they're like, damn, I'm always paying for them.
Yeah.
You know, that person that like, when I used to smoke cigarettes for a long time, and that person that always bums a cigarette, always, they never have their own.
It's like, bro, when is it coming back around?
Yeah, exactly. Like, I'm spending half my packs on you or whatever. So I think it just becomes a thing. But anyways,
it's interesting too. We'll talk about the adapting too, because we talked about that last time. Yeah. But this is what I've talked about too recently with a lot of people, and it even, you know, in any culture, I really think, and especially when you're doing this kind of career, you know, your connections and the people that you meet are the most important thing. Like they are like paramount. Like that is the most important thing, I think. But you realize like the more that you give, like as long as you're not getting taken advantage of, but the more that you give to other people, like your knowledge, your ideas, could be money, whatever, the more will eventually come back to you. If you are one of those people that's always take, then it's just going to perpetuate more of that kind of behavior, and not much is going to come to you because you're not giving anything.
If you're one to believe that the universe works that way, and I am, I am now one to believe that like if you're constantly trying to like be shifty and like get away with things, that eventually you're going to have that much taken away from you in some sort of way, somehow, some way.
It's just the balance.
It's just the balance of the way things work. I feel, but like, and then. If you're always giving, you know, you're just always helping, always helping out. Ideally, at some point, even if you're like, I always help out, but I've lost my job, my home, and at some point, but somehow someone just gave me a fucking car. How did this happen? And how did that happen? You know, you've always done good. So at some point it'll get around, because I don't want to like put the message out there that like things will always get better, because sometimes they just have to get really shitty before they even get remotely better.
Yeah, for sure. But I think it always depends upon how your mindset about it is.
No
like,
doubt.
That's everything.
I think like it's almost like not dark, but like mean to say, but like I kind of have, and this is something I think I've heard a couple other people say, but I kind of have no expectations for anyone.
Yeah.
Like when I give someone money, not like here's money, but like if they pay for me, I come at it from a place like, yeah, I just lost that money. Like that's just kind of, and like when I do something, like when you're saying like you need to give and like give and take and things will come back to you, like I almost feel like it's like you need to come from a place of pure, genuine, like care. It reminds me of the story of, have you guys ever listened to Hidden Brain?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
He talks about it. Yeah, I actually haven't, but he
talks about the guys who made Google, and they just were like, hey, the way that the internet works doesn't work that well. What if we linked pages? And they didn't do it because they wanted money.
Yeah.
Right.
They did it because they were like,
way to do it.
Yeah, they're like, this is not logical, and we think there's a better way to do it. And then they did it, and then they got wildly successful. But if you're always doing stuff because you think, okay, well, if I do this, he'll probably hit me back, and then I can get that, and then that's it might work for a bit, but it won't really work.
It'll put you in a worser place too.
Yeah.
Like just expecting, and I think that I feel like you were saying that, or that you were maybe thinking that my mind's getting jumbled. But that like you can't sit, I always do nice things for everyone. How come no one does nice things for me? Or how come I'm not receiving?
The mindset is in the wrong place.
When you talk about the mindset, I really think it's important to understand that like you can't just be like, I always do nice things for everybody. How come that shit's not coming back to me? You just continue to go on and then do your thing and then be genuine and be whatever.
Because that's coming from a place of you're thinking about lack. Like, I don't have, they aren't giving. It's like, no. Like, it's about like Jonah said, genuinely wanting to help other people. And that's like what your main goal is with whatever you're doing. And then the byproduct of that will end up being, a lot of times, will be money or some kind of success, or could be notoriety, whatever it is. And
especially within film.
Yeah, exactly.
Totally.
Like,
it's all collaboration.
Bring it back to like film, like exactly.
Artistics, like art in general, like it's just collaboration. It's just like working with that person. You really can't. It's really hard, and I encourage collaboration on a whole like huge level, because you just sit in your room and you're just like, I don't want to work with that person, or even like this person's doing some awesome shit, but I don't want to like ask how they did it. I'll just try and figure it out. Just ask.
Yeah, I mean, you never know. Like, just ask. And that's what I realized too.
Then you know how to do that dope thing.
What we talked about last time is the biggest thing and the most connections that I've got in the last year of just doing this and pursuing it is because of networking and actually being like genuinely wanting to meet people in the field and that are doing this kind of stuff, the people that I vibe with. Yeah. Right? And not just like sitting in your room making fucking YouTube videos.
Yeah.
Like, I do that too, but like not like...
It's not the main. That's not the goal.
the opportunity, it's like you always have these choices. Like, should I go out and like meet these people and network with them, or should I sit here and just like, edit? And it's like you got to make those choices all the time, but you got to like have the you have to know when it's time to make the choice. Where, okay, you know what? Now is time for networking, and that is actually a priority right now because that is going to lead to more things than me sitting here, editing. Obviously, you need to do a mix of both, but it's I think that's the biggest thing. It's just the networking and the connections. And if you are on good graces with people, or you're genuinely want to help other people, and you're a good person to be around, that's gonna help you. Like,
I'm a firm believer that you don't even have to be that talented. Like,
no,
there are people, and I'm not going to name drop people, like big people who I truly believe are not that talented, but they just know people. You know what I mean?
Like, more, sure.
And like that goes without saying for anything. If you're just a nice person and you're fun to work with, people just want to work with you.
Yeah.
Like,
you don't have to be the best. Like,
and you will become the best. Like, it's the never be the smartest person in the room thing.
Right. Sometimes also like, I was thinking about this the other day. Sometimes I'm just like, that person's just fucking cool. And everyone thinks they're really cool. And they are kind of cool. And it's just like, fuck. But they're like a young kid or something like that. And they're just cool. Like, they'll just like get some tattoos on their hand or do something like that. And you're like, damn, that's fucking cool. And like, they'll just start wearing something. And they'll just be like, damn, that's kind of fucking cool. And like
that dude's a badass.
Like, they're just like a cool person that like is always saying the right thing, like this, like nah, and you're like, oh, that was the perfect thing to say in that situation.
You know why they're probably cool or why you think they're cool is probably they don't really give a shit what everybody else is thinking.
Not really.
Like they're just doing what they want to do. Like, I think that's a trap too. Is like trying to please everybody and trying to like be the perfect person in your whatever career.
Maybe if I do this and then they'll think I'm,
the power to say no is like.
That's huge.
That's
I had to learn that.
It's a big deal, yeah.
I had to learn that like early on because I was like, yes to anything and everything, and then I was like overwhelmed. It's crazy.
That can easily happen.
I wanted to ask that like, did you feel like you had to come back here to like feel like you learned all the things that you did, or did you have a moment when you were like out there that you felt like, I'm so fucking happy that we stayed, and I'm so happy that we did this, and like I've learned. Did you have like a self-reflecting moment out in India?
Out in the hills.
Out in the fucking jungle
with the leopards and all that crazy.
With some leopards.
Well, not a political podcast, but definitely there was a moment when, because my senior year was, it's like 2017, right around that time.
That's the big year.
And I wasn't actually sure if I was going to come back because of the political climate in the United States. I'd been out for so long, and kind of the turn of events that happened around that time. I started looking in Europe and started really looking around, and I wasn't sure if I was going to come back, but I felt a certain responsibility. I don't mean to be patriotic, but as an American, I felt a certain responsibility, and one of it came down to not just the country, but my friends back home who fortunately I've maintained connection with. I felt this need to go back and be a part of their lives and be a part of my family's lives. I have a grandmother who I take care of. She's her husband, my grandfather, passed away. So there was all these things that were like, I need to be in this country. And there's also a lot. Obviously, it's one of the India's actually makes the most movies every year.
I believe,
but
Bollywood
makes the most movies every year, so it's got an industry. But I felt that what I wanted to be a part of, especially the independent movie film movement, I wanted that was here, and so I definitely felt like there was a lot pulling me here. But for now, that could change. I'm not super stuck here. I think it's like we were saying earlier. Is once that kind of door is open, I'll be here for a while. I'll be here for college. And if work keeps me here, I will stay here.
Yep.
But if work takes me somewhere else, I'll just go there.
Yeah. And you already did it before, so you can do it again.
There's not a whole lot of fear.
Right.
I'm very good at long plane rides. I did 16-hour flights twice a year for 4 years. I've been on 8-hour trains and planes. So it's like, it's just, I can turn off now. Which is totally the key. But no, there's obviously, I was saying to you, most of who I am is from India at this point.
Yeah.
So I had all of those epiphanies that you're saying, all of those moments, all of them are from India.
Yeah.
Yeah, and those like formative years too. I mean,
all
your
of them,
teen years, like that's a big deal. Like,
it really is, and it's strange. And this is one of the proudest things is keeping those connections in New Hampshire, because it keeps you so aware of how much you've changed.
yeah.
I'd go back, and it's tough. It's really tough because I'm living such a different life, but it's all about the perspective. I'm such a firm believer that you should not burn bridges, and you should have the most diverse group of people in your lives.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Because it's just stories, man. Like, it's like, I go back to New Hampshire and I'm reminded of what it truly means to be like a hardworking person. These guys are construction workers, and they plow, and they work on mountains, and they work 16-hour, 12-hour shifts
and stuff.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh, this is what being a hard worker means. And like, that's the lesson I've learned. And like, and then I come back to the city and I see people who are like super trendy and cool, and I'm like, wow, you have a hand tattoo?
Yeah,
dope.
yeah.
And then I see my friends from Woodstock, and I'm reminded what it means to be a third culture kid. And it's like, the essay I wrote for college to get in is called Bubble Hopper, and that's, I think you almost said that verbatim. It's like, you hop to these different places, and you are part of their culture and respectful of your culture and learn. Yeah. But you're kind of just hopping. Once it's open, you're hopping.
Yeah.
Right.
And then you make movies about it.
I think, and it's weird when I came back. I mean, I wasn't gone quite as long as you, but I was gone from the U.S. for like 15 months, and coming back, it was like one of these feelings where it was like, everything changed, or nothing changed, but yet everything changed. Type thing, where it's like, maybe the place that you came from like didn't change very much at all, but then your like perspective and your mindset about things changed so much, so that getting back in that place, so you have those two things, or those two kind of ways of thinking kind of coalescing, that really shows you, wow, like I've come a long way. And I feel like that too for myself is just like, doing things that I was scared to do, and just like doing them anyway, saying fuck it, like I'm just gonna go for it and just do it. And I think that kind of mindset is really what elevates people to the level that most people want to get to. But a lot of times it can be difficult because their fear about it, or something's holding them back, and it's usually because your own kind of thinking about things, or you just haven't had these things brought to your attention, maybe because you've only been in the same place for this all the time. So then you don't, that's why the traveling is so big. It's just transformational. Yeah. That's really like the best word I could attribute to that. Yeah. But
definitely. I think we'll wrap this up if you're good.
Definitely. Yeah. I'm glad we could talk about it. I think it's a really important conversation to have, all of these, about like kind of creativity and the intersection of personality and experience. I think that it's way overlooked in what we do. I think it's a super fun craft, photography, videography, all of it. And I think talking about not just that, like, it's fun to talk about the gear, and it's fun to talk about shooting, and it's fun to talk about all the cool stuff I've been doing, but I think to really talk about what goes into the person behind the camera.
Right. Yeah. Who you are, where you come from, how you got there, and what influences you to make what you make, and what keeps you ticking, going, and driving.
Yeah. How you're an artist, and like, and now, and being an artist is cool because you can apply it to your craft, not only to your craft, you can also apply it to just your life. Like I'm an artist of my life. Like I'm shaping my life how I want it to be. Yeah. And that's like, to me, is like the dopest thing that you can do. And it's, it takes a lot of effort, and it takes a lot of balls to like actually do that. Yeah. So, I'm just excited being around people that are doing that. So
agreed.
Oh yeah.
Thanks so much for having me stop by, guys. I'm super excited. I think what this podcast is really, really special, because I think it is hitting that note. I think the more you do it, I think the more people will realize how important these conversations are. Not just the fun, trendy part, but let's talk about your brain and how it works.
What's up, guys? So thank you for watching episode 2 of the Breaking Boundaries podcast. We had a great time, and it's always fun talking to creatives. We were lucky enough to have Jonah on the podcast. He shared his amazing story about living in India, and now he's on a creative path for doing videography, filmmaking, and being a director of photography. So it's awesome to have people on like this. And Raphael, anything you want to say as we sign off here?
No, I think you summed it all up. Breaking Boundaries podcast, super fucking dope. We got it.
All right, that was hilarious. All right, so all the links will be down below. Jonah's links, his website, which he said is under construction, so we may put that, or his Instagram, or whatever he wants. We're gonna put that down below, and our links will be down below as well. And if you guys have any suggestions on what we should talk about, who we should interview, or if you yourself want to be interviewed, drop it down below in the comments, and we will respond. We love getting feedback from you guys. You're amazing. So, yeah, thanks for watching, guys.
Bye.
Peace.